Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L here to talk about a brand new manga, and we're getting back into the manga swing of things. What was this thing called again? I know more about the content than the title. Ichi the Witch. It's about a young man who becomes a witch. Also, the birds are here. They're having a good day. Alright, cool. So guys, this, I'm going to title this video kind of special. It's going to be called, I think I'm going to call it a literary review. What I'm going to be doing coming into this chapter, we're going to be talking about the chapter. It's a brand new manga. We're going to be talking about, first off, is this thing going to get cancelled? Because that's the most important thing to talk about when it comes to a Shonen Jump series. We're going to talk about whether or not it's going to be cancelled. We're going to talk about the pedigree coming into the manga, because it is actually very significant, potentially. And we're going to talk about, fundamentally, the things... Hi, Coco. Fundamentally, the things that make this manga maybe suitable to Shonen Jump, and the things that do not make this manga suitable to Shonen Jump, if there are any things. The point of the review is ultimately to talk about its prospects, and then we will of course celebrate the cool things that it does. We're calling it a literary review partly because it is a pretty sophisticated manga coming into it. Anyway, let's get into it. So let's start off with the pedigree, right? Apparently, this is written by the author of Iruma-kun. It's the same name. No one seems to be saying it's not written by them, and it's also drawn by the artist of Act Age, the series that got cancelled because the writer did something very creepy with an underage child. Alright, so that's the pedigree coming into it. Already, fundamentally, I'm a little bit sketched out, because, again, Shonen Jump, I had to go check, but Iruma-kun is not associated to Shueisha. That's a different company. So again, Shonen Jump has gone and they have sniped another author, like they did with Astro Royale. So that is kind of concerning already, because Iruma-kun's author has so much workload. I'm assuming that, like, the notes that Iruma-kun's author is producing for this cannot be that detailed. Or, like, they're detailed, but they can't be something that they spend so much time on. I think the artist of Act Age is most likely going to be carrying a lot of the series. Probably, like, the Iruma-kun author gives a very quick, like, storyboard or a draft, and then the Act Age author, like, fleshes it out. I just can't imagine that kind of workload that the Iruma-kun author is taking on right now. That's insane. If, of course, everything I say about the Iruma-kun author is assuming that the information is correct and that is the author for this, and it's a lady, so I have to be very careful and not get caught in my habits. Sorry about that, got distracted by the birds. Anyway, let's start fundamentally with the structure of the chapter, because this is probably, it actually is worth talking about. So the structure of the chapter, and when I say, let's say the timeline structure of the chapter. We start with the main character getting a sense for his initial starting setting, which is the Druid Mountain. Then we launch into a pretty lengthy flashback. We go through the sequence of the flashback, getting to like a near past flashback, where we find out, okay, this guy, this is his general goal. He wants to go and hunt this particular monster, alright? So you're getting the establishment of the goal. Then we move into this idea of the principle, death for death. So this is establishing what he's like. Now, I do believe that this is still happening, but I want to point out something, right? Black frames for like a deep flashback, and then we have the gray frames, which is already significant, saying something about what he's about. The gray frames are already significant in that it's a different flavor of flashback. It's not the same as that initial flashback. Anyway, we end off his portion of the story with a general idea about... Sorry about that, I just realized that the image wasn't changing. Anyway, whatever, we're talking about this. Anyway, we end off his portion, and we go into the portion with what's probably going to be the main female character. Alright, so and then after that we come back, she has her whole moment, and then we come back to the main character who does his kill, and he gets to be the first male mage. Alright, so fundamentally the first thing we gotta talk about is the structure, right? We do so much in terms of moving around the timeline, and I do believe that is a barrier to entry for like the youngest reader of Shonen Jump, which I think is probably going to be a very dangerous move. So in my experience, let me just like start off with my experience. If I was writing a book that had that kind of start with the jumping around in the flashback, and I was transposing it exactly as it is in the manga, and like that's the key word, like a direct translation, word for word, the sequence in the manga is the sequence in the book, I would be in a lot of trouble. People just, in the genres that I write in, people just do not like jumping around the timeline like that. and the amount of jumps that you do in there, I think I don't know how much that affects manga retention, but for books it's gonna affect, like, it's gonna give me a lot of bad reviews. It's gonna take away the profitability of the book. A lot of people give up when there's a lot of like significant sequence changing in a self-published book. Like, if I don't have the power of like a marketing machine behind me, it's not gonna work out. But fundamentally, like, that initial structure, like, it has a lot of moving parts. Heck, man, like, honestly, I think the introduction of the gray frame is by far like the thing that tells you this is a very complex start in terms of like how you're doing the sequencing. Already, like, you don't see gray frame very often, man. And the fact that the author felt that they needed to go and put in the gray frame to like give some kind of extra context clue as to where we are in the timeline, that's already like a significant layer of complication that I think is very dangerous for your first chapter in Shonen Jump. But again, pedigree. Like, this writer, technically, you would think has you never know. The pedigree might be enough to like push it through, but already that's fundamentally very tough. If this was a book, I'd lose a lot of money for it. But it's a manga, so we don't really know what's going on there. Now let's move on to the main female character. Okay, so I'm not gonna really touch on in this part when we're talking about the marketability and like the profitability of the series. I'm not really gonna touch on specifically, what was I not going to touch on? There was a part here. Oh yeah, the whole idea about like this being the only man in the world with magic. I'm not really going to touch on that, other than like the final statement at the end, just because I don't think that really matters. I think that might be a really smart move to like make the boys that read the manga feel a little bit more special, like as they're reading the manga. I think that might be the move. The thing that's more important is specifically the structure that we're having with the two main characters. So, in Shonen Jump, you really should not be using the fairy tale style. And the fairy tale style is a very powerful main character and a point of view female character who pretty much is the eyes of the audience as they look into the the hidden world, if we're using the terminology from the hero's journey. So, you don't use the fairy tale style, and that's the same style that Deadly Sins uses. Honestly, that style works better in Shonen Magazine, because that's what we've seen trend-wise within Shonen Jump. The style that they are using is the male, or should be the underdog male character, and the teacher female character. We've seen this structure one time before in recent memory. That was Red Hood. It seems to be the structure we're going to be going in here. Specifically, there is a dynamic where the main character doesn't know about the hidden world. In the hidden world, in this case, the world of magic. And the female character is the one that knows, and it could be the mentor. Now, very quickly, an aside, series that have done the fairy tale style have been like Phantom Seer, and there was another one that did it very recently. Phantom Seer. I think Hell Warden also did it. Anyway, those series did it. Not a good idea. It like really isn't a good idea to do it. In terms of, and I think like in this current lineup of Shonen Jump, I believe that News Exorcist is another one that does underdog male character and overpowered female character. I think for New and the main character there, I think that's like another one. Yeah, when you look at the current lineup of Shonen Jump, really only Undead Unluck got away with the fairy tale style. And that happened largely because Undead Unluck came out at a time when there were a lot of weaker series, which allowed Undead Unluck to secure a place in like mid-tier Shonen Jump. So, you know, it's important to say that because like the conditions of the manga at a time of release do affect whether or not the manga gets out far enough to become a mid-tier series. So that's why I'm bringing it up. Anyway, point is, on this particular angle, if we are going into a mentor-mentee type dynamic with the two main characters here, you have better odds. And I'm not going to say that means it's going to succeed because Red Hood exists, but Red Hood had other problems going into it. But this dynamic is, if we're looking trend-wise, this dynamic is the better dynamic to go with because the male character gets to learn about the world. Now, speaking of the world, this is another issue. This world is a fully original fantasy world. That is dangerous. This is, again, another thing you should be doing in Shonen Magazine. You really should not be doing this in Shonen Jump. Very simple reason why. And I'm talking like, you know, I'm also talking like, let's pretend that you are someone that wants to get into Shonen Jump and we're talking like pure probabilities. And please remember that when it comes to probabilities, you could have a 90% success rate. That does not mean that you are guaranteed to succeed. Same thing with a 90% failure rate. Does not mean you're guaranteed to fail. It just means you're extremely likely to. But very quickly, with Shonen Jump. Like right now in Shonen Jump, how many of the Shonen Jump series are using a fully fantastical fantasy setting? And not like one that's historically based, and not one that's based on like the urban, like a very, like a small step across from an urban universe, right? Like there's tiers here. But Yozakura Family is a modern setting just with superpowers. Akane Banashi is a modern setting. Witch Watch is a modern setting. Astro Royale is a modern setting, but post-apocalyptic, I would call it that. Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi, modern setting. He wants to be in the camera too. Sakamoto Days, modern setting. Kagurabachi has a fork in, I believe, in the setting. It's still like just magic up Japan. The point is, Japan is in there. Like, really, of the fantasy series, what do you have? You have One Piece, and previously you had Black Clover. When you look at like the track record of pure fantasy setting Shonen Jump series, they don't have a good track record. What was that? Glinka and Gluna? Axed. Trying to think of the other ones, but that's like a one from recent memory. One Piece, it's here because it is a vestige of an older era. Naruto is gone forever, so we don't have that setting anymore. Fundamentally, like trend-wise, you have better odds doing a relatable setting that's not fantastical, or you have better odds with a setting that is rooted in the modern world than you do with a purely original fantasy setting. That already puts you in a really bad position just looking at the odds. Of course, again, Black Clover existed. You can definitely push through it, but you're looking now at being the one fantasy series among a sea of modern or real world rooted series. And that might also be why this thing exists, because I think Shonen Jump does want to fill a quota. I think they do want one of their fantasy setting series in here, and they brought in the Iruma author because they're hoping that this person's pedigree can just popularity can push it to that next level. Also, I look at this and I feel reminded by Witch Hat Atelier. Am I saying? I think that's the name of the series. I'm very reminded of that, and it makes me want to think that they are setting up a competitor for Witch Hat. I don't know. That's like what I'm thinking, but like that might also be just, this might be a little trend that we're seeing right now. It doesn't really matter at that point. Anyway, so we're talking about that. Dynamic is good odds. The setting, dangerous. You can't really see it, but I do want to just say like the art I think is really amazing. But we have to keep talking about the marketability. Let's move to the next one. So, you have a main character. To some degree, there's two schools of thoughts on main characters. One, they are a normal person that gets really lucky. One, they are a person that like worked really hard to justify why they are the main character. So this guy is really more like Asta than he is Izuku. Although he did also get lucky. But he put himself in a position where luck could work out for him. And that's like the big distinction. That's what makes him like an Asta-like character. Now, what we're going to talk about in this particular section is he an overpowered character? Now, the good thing is, and this is actually where I think it's going to take, where you're probably going to see the most amount of skill from the author coming out, is that what you end up having is that you have like the top 1% of male specimens in the world. As you can see, it would still take a miracle. You can't see it here, but that's okay because I can't show the entirety of the manga. That'd be like close to piracy. But anyway, the manga says like, even if all that lined up, it would still take a miracle. So this is a very special young man. Right place, right time, right aptitude, right skill, right beliefs. Awesome stuff. So you end up with probably someone who's at the top 1% of the normal world. So we really need to see how that's going to transition into the hidden world, or the world of magic in this case. We need to see how much of an underdog he is going to be. Already in this chapter, he cracked the girl's barrier a little bit, right? So that's already, you're kind of like flirting with some overpoweredness. Now, the reason that being an underdog is important is because like it does something, it's the same reason for why isekais are very popular or profitable as a genre. It's because like it allows the reader to like really get into, it helps more immersion for like most readers. So following an underdog and their rise is a really good story structure in general, and it gives you really good odds. Thankfully, because we have someone that you can fundamentally says deserves his power because he did so much in his life to like say that, yo, I am deserving of this lucky chance. Hard work gets lucky, as they say. So you have that. You have like a really good like justification for it. You have like something that feels good. This feels like justice. This feels like, yeah, this is neat. As long as they don't lean in too much on him being an expert in the field, and then when I say too much, like there's a way of you kind of have to like just see it because it kind of depends on how much of a novice he's going to be in the magic world. Anyway, we're coming back into this. As long as they play the balance right and they just play up his underdogness more than his expertise, I think odds-wise that gives you better odds in surviving in Shonen Jump, just because it'll be easier for guys to follow him. Now, in that case, you know, we have a lot of other angles coming in here. You have like the thing that this is the only male witch so far that we're seeing in the series. You know, you could have a little bit of a power fantasy mechanic there. The Iruma-kun author is very good with like shipping and teasing and that kind of stuff. So I would actually think that they have an idea of how to get people interested in the series in that regard. But yeah, those are the main factors that actually I think influence marketability the most if we're talking about like general specifics. If we were to get into the actual story thing here, you see a lot of really novel things. You know, at the beginning I talked, I said like why the structure is rough, but the structure that we see here of the flashbacks and like then the whole segment with the girl and the magic, also the magic's character was very good. I feel like we're going to keep seeing him in the future. I feel like it's living magic inside the boy right now. Anyway, the structure itself, I think it's like really robust. I think it's a really cool thing. I think it's nice to have this kind of level of complexity in first chapter. The idea that the magics are alive, I think is also a really neat idea. I'll definitely plagiarize that sometime in the future. I think that's super cool. Then again, animate magic, I think we've seen iterations of it before, but I like the design that comes in here. I think this is pretty neat. The main female characters' faces and all that kind of stuff, I think it's extremely charming. I think you have something really good here. Honestly, like, you know, these parts are things that would make people who aren't casual readers really like it because it's unique. It's novel, right? It's a very novel series, but see, like, being novel doesn't translate to being profitable. You need to like really get those casual readers in there, right? And you need to turn those casual readers into lifelong readers is pretty much the challenge here. But for an experienced reader of Shonen Jump, this is extremely novel. I'm trying to think, are there any other like super sophisticated like little things that they're doing here? Well, okay, the choice to make it so that it's only women who are witches, that is a really interesting choice, but like it already has precedence in recent memory. But what we're seeing here at this point is, I think it's gonna be interesting to see where that goes. Like there's reason why you would say only women have access to magic. There's reasons why you would say that for sure. And I do think that this is probably a calculated thing to make one of the birds as well. It's a calculated thing to make this more appealing to the target market, just because it like makes them think, oh yeah, the guy is special, he's special, and like it opens up a lot of possibility to put the kid in a situation where he is surrounded by women, which is always a good idea in Shonen Jump, because then you get to see pretty girls, right, and like little kids like that. But yeah, I don't think anyone knows the names of the birds, but this is Avalanche, if anyone's wondering. She likes to bite. She's in a bitey phase. Alright, overall, we're gonna know whether or not this series is succeeding in Shonen Jump, like in 8 or so weeks. I'll probably make an update at that point. I feel like some people are going to point out Mashal as a complete fantasy series and had an overpowered main character, but Mashal is also like a severe comedy. The more you go towards comedy, like there's factors that throw things off. Comedy throws things off. Like I think comedy might be what saves Kyoshi. Maybe I have to look at what's going on with that series. But with this one, you know, I like to be conservative with my predictions about these kind of things. And this is a series that if there was something that like scares me the most for this series' chances, honestly, it's the setting. Doing a full magic setting or a fully original setting like that is dangerous in recent times with Shonen Jump. And right now, we have two more series coming up very quickly, and I think the problem with having two more series coming up really quickly is that the weak series right now are about to get killed. Which, if this thing turns into the new weak series, then it's not gonna be a good time here. But we won't really know until 8 weeks. We know like all we really have is trends to tell us the probability here, and like I said, the thing that scares me the most for it is really the choice of setting. Hi. We'll have to see what happens, but yeah, marketability wise, I think this could end up as a mid-tier series for sure. I think this could end up as a mid-tier series, and the thing with the mid-tier series is that if you give it enough time, if you survive into mid-tier, you have an opportunity to maybe touch high tier at some point, which is what a lot of manga sometimes need. They just need the time to become a high tier series in terms of Shonen Jump's internal rankings. But yeah, overall, my final review. I talked about the marketability aspect just now, but story-wise, it's a competent story. Maybe it's possible that it might become a little bit slow-paced, which would like maybe affect its chances. But so far, I think it's a competent story. Oh, you know what? I did miss one story aspect that's actually very important. The death for death thing. So this is like a guiding principle for the main character. Like a lot of times, people will create a guiding principle so that readers can really get this idea in their head. What is this character about? Fundamentally, if you can say nothing else about the character, you will ultimately be able to say death for death. This is a kid that will only kill if you try to kill him, or something like that. You will notice that a lot of first chapters actually use this quite a lot, establishing a guiding principle for the character. And that's just because like it's super easy. It's a nice like cementing tool for getting a character into people's minds. For me personally, I've also used the death for death one. Like that, I think that's a pretty easy one to wrap your head around. And because like our world has like some good talks about hunting culture, people understand the death for death guiding principle pretty well. Like this is one people that are say, yeah, this is a very fair principle. Of course, you know, you always have people that say no, it's not, but people only say no, it's not because the thing that they're fighting is so popular as a thought. One thing I would say about this guiding principle, though, is that it's not heroic. This is an honorable guiding principle, not a heroic one, because death for death, you can see why exactly that becomes not heroic. Any Hoosers. The guiding principle, like, this is something that should be in every first chapter, so that is alright. I'm excited to see what happens. 8 weeks is going to be when we know for sure. If we see, like, a color page at week 7, that'd be really great. If we see a color page at week 8, that'd be really great. But yeah, I think I'll make a video today about what's probably going to get cancelled in Shonen Jump, since we have 2 new series coming up and ignoring Jujukai ending. But yeah, we'll talk about that in another video. But guys, for anyone that watched this one, thank you so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed, and till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day. I think I covered everything here. I think you guys know, yeah, I think it's a nice sophisticated series. Cool. Till next time, everyone.